Hotep, and welcome to Matters of Diversity with Dr. B. Today, we're going to be celebrating the last day of National Volunteer Month. And so I have some very exciting students who are members of the UCF volunteering team. We'll talk more about what that looks like. I'm not saying it correctly, I don't believe, in terms of what their group is. I'll be talking about a little bit, I think it's Volunteer UCF. And each student is really moving forward in their actual degree plans to graduate soon from the university. But while they're here, they're doing some great things with the individuals on campus who are really putting efforts towards volunteerism and supporting others who may be in need. So first, let's bring in Luciana Benquera. And Luciana is a third-year student at UCF studying biology with a focus on ecology and conservation. Alongside her involvement with the alternate break program, she is an intern with the Environmental Profit Ideas for Us and recently collaborated on an award-winning research project with the UCF Arboretum. So we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. Morgan is a current rising senior majoring in chemistry with an ultimate goal of attending medical school after college. She enjoys volunteering and learning more about the community and is encouraging or is encouraged to become a member of the Volunteer UCF as a social topic director this year. A mentor for a science leadership and mentoring program. She is paired with a 7th grade young lady to discuss the importance of women in STEM and leadership. That's a powerful mention. And last, we have Valeria, and also a rising senior, double majoring in film and advertising, public relations, that's a lot, and is so honored to have spent the majority of her college career working for Volunteer UCF. In addition to working within the community engagement field in UCF, currently is a communications intern for the College of Health Professions and Sciences. So with that, let's bring them all in. Valeria Hansen, Morgan Brackett, and Luciana, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, you'll get me right, is Benqueto. And so welcome all, and how are you doing?
Good.
Very good.
Great. Thanks for having us.
I'm glad to have you here. I kind of chopped up some of your bio because when I was reading it, it was saying I, and I'm like, I'm not I. What do I do? So I was trying to read through the lines here. I should have did a little bit of homework prior too. That would have been my good volunteerism, right? So anyway, I hope all are well, and that it's the end of the month that was designated for volunteering. And can you kind of talk about what maybe you all been doing over the course of this past month and what you're hoping to be doing as the year rolls out even further?
Well, I guess in terms of what I've been doing, wow, kind of all over the place, to be honest. But I guess in terms of volunteering, I've been trying to finish up my current directorship with the UCF as the social topic director. Mm-hmm. I'm the relationship violence awareness director this year, and just trying to come up with the last few events that, I want to finish off the year with. I did a card making event a few weeks back, probably a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks back. And that's basically where we had volunteers kind of sit and make cards for individuals that were in, that might be in shelters for domestic violence. And these were like just encouraging cards, things that, volunteers want to say to these individuals, quotes that they think would be encouraging for them to hear. So it's just really a heartwarming event.
So I'm going to ask each person this question too, but as you shared that, what got you into volunteering in the first place?
Great question. I think just thinking it back to when I first started volunteering, it was probably in middle school, and I had to do it. Like back then, they made us do it for service credit for whatever organizations we were in at the time, and
Right.
where I was forced to do that first event, it was really enjoyable for me. And admittedly, it wasn't the fact that I was doing service at the time, because the service event that I was doing was like, it was like some type of gardening event or something like that, which,
Okay.
back then, I wasn't really that into, to be honest, but I just really enjoyed the connection that I got with other people. I got to meet a lot of different students that didn't go to my school. And I think that really kind of stuck out to me. And so I was like, well, I want more of this. So I'm going to keep doing it, not being
Excellent.
forced to do it, but I'm going to keep, kind of reaching out and seeing what else I can get involved in. So
Great.
that really kind of started the whole thing with me getting involved in volunteerism.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to mute when you're not on, because I think it's getting some echo here. But Luciana, you're not muted right now, so I'm going to bring you in.
Okay.
And so, what have you been doing all week and all month? And what also got you involved in becoming a volunteer?
What I've been doing all month is, I suppose, setting up for the upcoming year for the alternative break program. During a traditional school year, non-pandemic conditions, we run service trips to different parts of the state and within the country, and sometimes internationally, to allow UCF students to volunteer in communities that aren't their own, and kind of get to know each other as well as a community, and understand the social issues involved with what they may be volunteering with. And it's a really amazing experience. I've gone on 3 of them, like 3 trips previously myself. And I guess what we're trying to figure out is what that can look like during the upcoming school year, with still the pandemic, but some, I guess, restrictions lifting. And we're kind of trying to see how we can get students involved and engaged as much as we can.
Nice. So what are you involved when you go? What are you doing when you're actually a part of this this endeavor? Like when you're doing the outreach or whatever, what actually goes on in that moment?
You mean like during trips?
Yeah, during trips.
During trips, I guess what has defined it the most for me is just like team building with the other people there, whether it be like with the service activity that we're doing, or just reflecting with each other on like what the service activity was for the day, or what we learned from the nonprofit that we were working with, or just getting to know each other. I think the core of it is like team building and building community with each other, and getting to see new things and new places.
Excellent. So what got you started with volunteerism?
With volunteerism in general, I volunteered a bit in high school, just to get those service hours in as a requirement to graduate, but also I was also part of my high school's volunteer club, because it was just a very close-knit community, kind of like this one. People were very it was very strong in community, I suppose, in a way that matches volunteer UCF's, I guess, how volunteer UCF structures itself. So I got involved during college because, in all honesty, I thought it would be really cool to travel. And service was just kind of a part of that. And I was also interested in doing that. I believe the first trip that I went on, I picked because it had a sort of literacy type component, and I was an English major at the time, and I was like, oh, this kind of matches up with what I want to do. It'll be teaching English, and this is something that I'm interested in. So I guess I had something to get out of it, but I gained much more than what I thought I would end up gaining by getting to know other people that were there with me, volunteering and just spending time together.
That's great. It's a win-win. Definitely. Valeria.
Hi.
Hi.
So the question, just to confirm, was about what I've been doing kind of like the
What
past
have you been doing this past month during the month being attributed towards National Volunteer Month? So what kind of things were you doing? And then also, how
month.
did you get involved in volunteering in the first place?
Yeah, so I am actually, this is my first day not as a student director. Morgan is stepping into that role and she's going to do an amazing job. But I've spent the last year as a student director for Volunteer UCF. So
Okay.
what that means is I kind of oversee the program and I directly work with students. And so I kind of guide them and support them while they're making service events. I started as the youth and mentoring director, so I was right there with them. Um, I was organizing service events. I was getting to know my community. I'm not from Orlando, so it really provided me a new opportunity to do that.
Okay.
Um, and then I was the assistant director, and now, or then I was the student director, and now I am back to being a volunteer. And I'm really excited about that. But this past year has really been very heavily focused, I think, on, or this past month has been really heavily focused on, making sure we get students service hours in, making sure that when directors are wrapping up their year, that they're sustainably setting the foundation for the next director to step in their shoes because it's a year-long commitment that they make.
Right.
So it's been a lot of transition and how do we make this transition as sustainable as possible so that the incoming director that's going to fill their shoes has a good starting point. They're able to get right in there and meet with community partners. So that's what I've been doing this past month.
Okay.
And how I got interested in volunteering, my mom, it's like one of her values. So she got me into it when I was really, really young. We would volunteer together. And then as I got older, obviously everyone I think needs it in the state of Florida as a requirement to graduate. So I would do that. And then I did a lot more service work that was based in like education. And, you know, it was interesting because I was in high school. And so I had a not maybe the most well-rounded understanding of the work I was doing. So Volunteer UCF was kind of a fresh opportunity for me because a big component of what we do is education. And that's,
Okay.
Educating about what toxic charity is and, how can really well-intentioned service, potentially harm a community. And those are things I had never really considered before. Um, so VUCF really expanded my worldview.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's great. That's great. So one of the things you said, Valeria, that made me think about this really quickly was you said something to the effect of, it being like a service project. And I'm wondering if it's tied to like coursework. Are students getting credit in their courses now at UCF for volunteering? And if so, how do you all kind of help support that? Or are there paperwork or things you have to do to kind of get faculty members to know that people have been doing this type of work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, if a professor wants to offer, service hours is like, I think often we'll get some students that are like, my professor is asking me if I volunteer and I show proof of it and you can sign this form that shows that I was volunteering, then I get extra credit. And so we absolutely do that. We love working with those students. We love working with lead scholars, GEB students, and like these are traditionally students that need service hours for some sort of credit.
Mhm.
Um, and we're more than happy to sign off on that paperwork. And I think we also look at it as an opportunity to get some students who, maybe if there hadn't been this requirement, they
Right.
wouldn't be as interested in the volunteerism. But it's kind of like the credit is a gateway to get them into learning about their
More involved.
community. And,
Yeah.
we try and foster that by having different social issues. So VUCF has social issues like environmentalism or youth and mentoring, which I was, or arts and recreation. And
Okay.
so we're able to get students interested in volunteering already in areas that they're interested in, that they're passionate about,
Mhm.
and kind of develop that and foster that and grow that. So.
So when you think about it in terms of the work that you're doing, what is the satisfaction that you're getting? Can you all talk about what it is that you get from the volunteer part, other than just doing good work? There's got to be maybe a component that hits you internally. What is that?
Yeah, I can touch a bit on that for me personally. So like in terms of being in a volunteer position, I guess of course, like you said, the work that you're doing is really worthwhile. That's, one of the main reasons you're doing it. But also, like I said, for me, it's just that community that I get with the people that I am volunteering with. For the most part, I volunteered in areas to where if I'm not working with people, I'm doing something for people that, I'm encountering them on, maybe an hourly basis or something like that. And it's like with that, I get to learn so much about other people, and that's something that's important to me. So, and even if these are like really short encounters, you can either put a smile on someone else's face, or they'll say something and you'll be like, wow, I didn't even think of that. And it's just like different perspectives, and it gives me the opportunity, I guess, just to practice like listening better, and just thinking about things from different perspectives. I would say that's like the biggest, I guess, the biggest pro that I get out of it, other than the work that I'm doing. In terms of what what I've done for the past year as a director, I guess just seeing the volunteers, like the students themselves, and the work that they want to get involved in. So of course, this past year we were pretty much all virtual because of the pandemic, and I just found it really encouraging that it was still students that wanted to get involved in these virtual, events.
Yeah.
And of course, there were a lot of people, like Val said, that had service requirements for classes or for lead or whatever it might be. But there were a lot of students that really put a lot into whatever it was that they were doing. Like I said, for example, in the last car making event that I did, there were a lot of students that were super creative and went above and beyond in the cars that they made. They didn't stop at the maximum amount of cars that I said that they could send. They sent, 5 or 6 in. And I just find that so encouraging, because it really means that, they actually care about what they're doing. And, the fact that we're virtual right now didn't really stop them. So I was really encouraged to see that this year.
How about you too?
I would definitely echo a lot of what Morgan said earlier about what I get out of it personally. I think is getting to meet other people and see what drives them, I guess, see what brought them to the work, as well as just the opportunity to get outside of, I guess, my normal routine, I guess my normal of like what I would do for myself. I guess for me, doing something for others also feels like an extension of doing something for myself, because I get to learn from the experience and make it my own in a way. I think regardless of whether it's like a volunteer or the other coordinators that I worked with over the past year, or one of the nonprofits or community partners that I worked with, every interaction, I feel like I've learned something new and had a new opportunity to use the skills that I have been like along the way training myself in. And I think that's always, I don't know, just like an opportunity or a blessing in disguise. I think like the work that the organization does is really amazing. And I mean, over the past year, we've been focusing, I guess, reorienting what the alternative break program does, because we haven't been able to function traditionally. We haven't been able to travel, I guess, physically, but we've been thinking a lot about what we can do education-wise to still engage students, how different ways that we can work with nonprofits, and different ways, I guess, for the team to work with each other. And I think it's been a really unique experience. And I'm excited to see how it'll progress in the future.
That's neat. So when you do the work, does it necessarily move towards what your career goals are as well? Or do you see, I mean, what skills are you getting that may be in line with what you're getting your degree in?
Uh, I believe I've gained a lot in terms of soft skills over the past year, in terms of being able to engage with professionals and being able to communicate professionally, not just with those professionals, but with other people on the team. I guess learning different collaboration skills are really valuable. And learning how to present myself has been really valuable, regardless of, I guess, what track I take in the future.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. Valeria.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a few things that are just they make me really happy. As a director, I think seeing someone who will come in and volunteer, and maybe in the beginning of the event, they're a little more reserved, they're not as engaged, but by the end of it, they are like right there with you. They're listening to what you're saying, they're excited, they're asking about future opportunities.
Okay.
That is like undoubtedly will put a smile on my face for the rest of the day, and just make me so happy. And it partly has to do with like there's a model that we kind of talk about in VUCF and ABP, and it's called the active citizenship continuum, and it's something that we really try and move students along. And in a few words, it's basically trying to move students from being just like members of their community that maybe aren't as engaged to like a very fluid spectrum of like actively engaging in their community, caring about social issues. And I mean, there's no right or wrong place to be on it, but it's really amazing to see students come in from a maybe more disinterested perspective, and they'll leave just excited, and that excites you as someone who's trying to lead the event. You're like, yeah, I'm excited about it, I want you to get excited about it, and this is amazing. So there's that. And I think from maybe a student leadership perspective, being able to watch students grow. I mean, if you're on the leadership team, you basically are watching these students from the selection process all the way through their time as a director or coordinator,
Right.
and watching them grow as leaders,
Mhm.
and watching them grow in their confidence and their self-assurance and their public speaking abilities and communicating with strangers and managing conflicts that come up, and being able to like seeing them like grow like that is so cool to me.
Right.
I've been able to watch Morgan and Luciana grow like this over the past year, and I'm so proud of them. And then watching them step into new leadership roles is like so exciting for me. And then finally, I think just on the community engagement part, being able to build that relationship with a community partner,
Yeah.
and they learn more about you and you learn more about them, and you're able to just like, I guess, take everything in. That's really satisfying for me. There's a lot of parts about this that are really satisfying for me, but those I think are just like the top three.
That's really good because it also goes in with the motto that UCF has, that UCF stands for opportunity. And so not only have you now given them leadership skills, you've given them other things that will kind of help them blossom in the growth that they're moving towards as they graduate. So how many students are typically on your roll in terms of volunteering? We have a very large campus. How many people actually participate in our volunteers in this realm?
So many. So many. And I think that's a testament to the community that we have on campus.
Okay.
I mean, we have, I would like to think that we have really empathetic, engaged students that care a lot. And so, I mean, I'm trying to think of an exact number of volunteers. But I know that our events will range anywhere from, 5 to 50 volunteers. Obviously, that number for in person was very decreased in order to, like, this past year, in order to accommodate for, you know, COVID. But I mean, the interest that we've had, I can speak personally. I mean, I get emails from students that are just asking me how they can get involved. And even if, you know, we are not able to have an event, I can connect them with someone in the community that is doing this work. So even if we're not doing it, they're still getting engaged. So I don't know if I have maybe like an exact number, but
But it sounds like there's a lot of involvement. And so because what you all were sharing is that like you got involved early on, like maybe, I mean, I heard one person say as early as, you know, maybe elementary school that they were doing some of this work in terms of volunteering. So if you are in the process of doing that and helping yourself be a part of a community, then, you know, I would imagine that that doesn't get cut off now that I'm a freshman, right? And so that helps to carry over in terms of the type of work, because that is a mindset, being a volunteer and doing that type of work. I wouldn't think that it would just fall off if that's something that you have become more and more engaged in. So the other question that I have for you all is this: a lot of volunteering opportunities come prepackaged, right? Have you and any of you three kind of created your own volunteering opportunity? And if so, what would that and what did it look like? Did you do it for UCF or did you do it outside of UCF? What did you create and how did you see that moving forward?
Okay, when you say prepackaged, could you kind of clarify, I guess, what you mean by that?
So what I was hearing you all say is like, you know, you might have something that the homeless shelter is doing. And so you send people there to support that. There's a program that's going on. You send people who can help in terms of having a presence, putting their hands together. You know, if it's a food kitchen or something like that, or a soup kitchen, they're there supporting that. So it's not something that you created. It's something that was already there. You're just sending people to it, right? So I think about what you said in terms of the card writing possibility. Maybe that's already something that was already implemented by someone and you're just tapping into that. I'm wondering if there anything that you created yourself and then started bringing volunteers in to make that project fly or work. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. For me, okay, so a lot of what we did this past year, it was like sending, like you said, students to events that have already been created with community partners, but a few of those events you do kind of put your touch in, you know, maybe for example, I know when we were in person, the previous relationship violence awareness director worked with Harbor House, which is a local shelter, like I said, for people experiencing relationship violence. Right. And they worked with them with a lot of things, and that might have looked different each time they volunteered. It could have been maybe they cooked with them, or maybe they did some sort of game night, or they worked in the garden and helped, you know, clean up the outside of the shelter. So, you know, it's different things like that. And the director kind of has a role in creating those events, but at the same time, you know, you have had such a long-term relationship with these community partners to where it's like, okay, they kind of know what we do as Volunteer UCF, so they will help you out. But for the most part, you are in charge of kind of creating those events. For me personally, back home, I kind of created a volunteer opportunity within my church with some of the young students, with some of the younger students that attend there. And I play piano, and a lot of times when I'm at the piano, they'll just run over and they're like, you know, we want to play. And I'm like, you know, maybe now's not the time. So I kind of figured after a while, it's just like, okay, well, a lot of them needed help with like schoolwork at that time because um, standardized testing was a big thing for them at that age. So I would do occasional like tutoring sessions. And if they had wanted to learn how to play piano, I would be like, okay, this is an incentive. We sit down and we learn first. And then after this, I'll teach you something on piano. So I did that for a few days, like before the school year would end. We would usually do it 2 days out the week because we didn't want it to be like too much to take away from the actual what they were in school for. But yeah, so that was just something entertaining and kind of enjoyable for me because I love working with kids. Like I really do enjoy it, and they wanted to learn piano, so win-win situation for everyone. We figured it out. So yeah, that was something I was kind of involved in back home.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think a big part of what we do, and a big part of our education in the program is educating directors about how you work within a community. So, if we're going into a school, right, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be like, these are your problems. This is what you need to fix. That's not okay. So there's a lot of active listening that takes place there.
Okay.
So it's less so about, just volunteering and more so about fulfilling a need that the community has in a way that empowers them, in a way that, maintains their agency, in a way that places us in a position of, we're serving them as opposed to, because what we're offering really is, maybe emotional labor, maybe physical labor. I've had events before and a lot of events sometimes are considered like grunt work. They're cleaning, they're beautifying the premises, but volunteers may not be able to see it in the moment, but it has a lasting impact on the community.
Right.
I mean, I remember volunteering with the YMCA a couple of years ago, back when I was a director, and it was cleaning equipment. It was picking up trash, it was cleaning the windows. And I remember, telling them, they do have people that come in, but we're able to come in a larger group and do a more thorough job and maybe address some issues that they haven't been able to. And I remember volunteers in the beginning would be very like, oh, this is exhausting. And then afterward, community members would people that went to the YMCA on a regular basis. And they would say, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so proud of our community. I'm proud of the premises. I'm proud to be here. And that kind of confidence that you can contribute and you can help give that back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the essence of what we're doing.
Yeah.
The volunteering doesn't have to be glamorous. It has to help people. And the end goal is that at the end of the day, service doesn't have to just be an activity. It can also kind of be a way of life, and it can go into all the things that you're doing, regardless of whether or not you're getting service hours for them.
Right. So is in Valeria, is there a difference between service learning projects and volunteerism? Is there a difference, or are they kind of one and the same?
So we kind of operate with a couple different things. So we have educational events and we have service events. So service events are events that students can attend and they can get volunteer hours for them. They can get those events signed for lead forms, GEB, for class credit. That is them actively doing direct service, working with a community partner. And our educational events, they're not able to get service for, but they are able to kind of take the next step and maybe further immerse themselves in a social issue. So an educational event might be, bringing in panelists. It might be, who are experts on the topic, community leaders. It might be watching a movie about hunger and having a discussion after with attendees. It might be, there's one event that really sticks out to me that we did a couple years ago, where we did coffee with an immigration lawyer, and that was an educational event. It was from our civic engagement director, and they brought in an immigration lawyer for about an hour just to talk with students and answer questions. And that was a really valuable experience because we have a lot of students that make up our student body that, or maybe they need help with documentation or they need help with immigration issues. And so it's an opportunity to bring them in and have them learning. And if you're not one of those students, you're able to sit there and learn about what your peers and your classmates and your friends, you know, some of the hurdles they might have to jump. And it was a really valuable experience. I think it was one of my favorite educational events that we ran. You know, we brought in representatives. We brought in Representative Anna Escamani in for just a discussion with students. So it's a way for us to get them engaged just
Right.
beyond service. You know, it's the next step.
Nice. Yeah, we had her on as a guest for the MOD a couple of weeks ago. Very, very powerful politician. Luciana, how about you?
In terms of what I've kind of done that's been sort of outside of the traditional come and volunteer with us structure. I would say that the experience that I put on during fall, the event that I ran during fall, was pretty unique because we had decided that we wanted to try to run our traditional like trips, like service trips, but virtually with a heavier focus on education. So what mine was essentially was I found a nonprofit that usually does service trips to Guatemala, Ecuador, places like that. And I met with them multiple times to see what we could do in terms of creating workshops, I suppose, for students that we wanted to be involved about the issues that they work in. They're called Highland Partners. They support a women's association, specifically like the one in Guatemala was the one that we had a focus on, that I guess tries to financially empower women in a rural indigenous community close to the capital. And what I got students to come to was essentially to listen to what that nonprofit does, listen to one of the leaders of the Women's Association, and also got them, I guess, engaged with the culture a little bit, like learning more about, I guess, the different ways that Guatemalan women support themselves in those communities, and how the association tries to, I guess, support women through workshops and through ways that they can, I guess, alleviate poverty within like their community, I guess, and share different work so that they can have more time to go pick up another job maybe, or go be able to be in school for a little bit longer. We essentially just got to learn about what this organization does to, I guess, support the community that it works for. And it's something that they had never done before, because what they traditionally do is send students there to learn about it in that physical location. But we got to do that virtually. And it was really interesting. There were some limitations, obviously, because it's different, I guess, watching and listening to someone through a screen versus actually getting to be in Guatemala. But I mean, I still got a lot out of getting to listen to people's stories and take the time to understand what another person goes through as compared to myself. And I still got some students to come and be engaged and listen to everything that like the workshops and panelists had to say. So I'm very proud, I guess, of having been able to put that together.
Excellent. So looking forward, 2 seniors graduating 2021.
Sorry, 2022.
So you got
Also
one more
2022.
2022. Okay. So the question I have is, what do you want to do? What would be like your greatest achievement before you graduated for UCF? moving forward? What's like your ultimate goal or dream when it comes to like volunteerism?
That is like the hardest question ever, but I'm gonna try my best to answer it. So I guess with this honor of getting to serve as student director for BCF next year, I really want to focus on more outreach to students and kind of hearing what they want in service events, and also not taking away from the fact that our primary goal is to serve community partners. Like Val said, it's really about what they need and not about, the events that we're trying to host. But I also do want to take into consideration more of what students want to see, because I guess coming from a social topic director perspective, when I first got into the position, I was just thinking of, okay, what can I do that is going to benefit both the students and the community partner? But, this was coming from my perspective and how I was emailing, the people that, we were working with. So I didn't really have any input from those students until, we did those events. And even then I didn't really get much feedback from students after events. There were a few, they would say that they enjoyed, but other than that, it wasn't really, what we really want to see. So I guess for me, one of my main goals in the next year would be just to get a lot more feedback from students to see, like I said, those events that they want to see within the next year, and just get, more open communication with them. I just think that's something important. So
Let me ask a question with that. So you made me think of this from this perspective. So the students who are volunteering, do you see that there are more students who are in their freshman year or first, second, third year, fourth year, people who are seniors? Does it tail off after a while? Who are you seeing as your largest constituents?
that's a good question. For me this year, with the events that I've hosted anyway, I saw a lot of first and second year students. And again, that kind of goes back to the fact that a lot of students are in lead, and that's when they normally do their lead program, and that they have to have those certain service hours in by their second year. So that could have definitely had an effect on it, but I don't think it tails off or anything, because you still do have that participation from upperclassmen. It's just not as many, but like I said, it could just be because of the organizations that they're in. So
Okay. Thanks.
I guess what I would like to see over the next year is I really want to engage the other students that I'll be leading on my board. I think I want to make it a priority to help them, I guess, be in the best situation that they can be to execute the projects that they want to do. I think I'm really excited to see what'll happen over the next year. And one of my priorities is to try to make it as collaborative as possible, regardless of whether it'll be still a bit virtual, like in terms of the way that we'll be working. Hopefully it'll be more in person to facilitate that a little bit better. But yeah, I'm really excited to engage the other people that I'll be working with and see what we can do.
Okay, great. Let me ask you, for the most part, like, can you see yourself being a part of a nonprofit in the future, with regards to continuing the volunteer nature of what it is that what your drive is? Do you see that as a possibility with the major that you have even?
I've considered it personally. I'm not sure yet though. Give me another couple of months maybe.
All right, we'll come back and check in on that.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your hope for the future? I'm gonna say Val, since Morgan said Val, so I think you like Val, so I'm gonna go with Val.
Val works too. People on the board and my friends call me Val, so that
Can I
works.
be your friend?
Yeah, you're my friend.
Okay, excellent. Now, can you answer my question, please?
Yeah. I think in terms of the board as kind of an outgoing director, something that I would really want to see is that sustainability continued. When you step into the role of a student director, it's interesting because you're looking at a role and the agency as a whole, not necessarily just while you're there. You're looking at it in 5 years. And so hopefully, um, I've been able to plant some seeds for future directors the way that, previous student directors have planted those seeds for me and given me a strong foundation to kind of build off of. And it's very much, I don't know if you've heard the saying, there's a saying that's kind of about how you plant a tree, you plant a seed for a tree that you're never going to sit in the shade of.
Yeah,
And that is something that I kind of think about when it comes to this position. It's,
nice.
very much like long-term goals and long-term effects on the community that I think about.
That's pretty deep. That
Thanks.
is, right? You plant a seed or you plant a tree that you're never going to sit in the shade of. That's you because that's long term. You know, if you really look at the environment, that a tree takes some time. You go to the redwood forest, you see that those trees have been there 300, 400, 500 years. And so that's a very powerful statement to make with regards to the work that you're doing. And this all stems from volunteering, right? Being altruistic and wanting to serve or help others to grow. Do you think that maybe your generation has something different than previous generations when it comes to this? Do you all have a lock on really wanting to be supportive and helpful to the community in ways that you have not seen maybe other generations before you doing?
Well, not that Gen Z is a monolith, because I don't want to speak on behalf of every 20-something college student,
Yeah.
but I know personally, I think it's things that are passed down to you. Um, you know, I had parents who fostered certain values in me. My mom fostered a sense of volunteerism. My dad is he educates himself a lot about like environmental like natures, things like that. He taught me at a young age what it meant like to care about, your physical community and like your earth. And that's something that I take with me. And so that's, that and my experiences now are things that I'm going to take and pass down to, my children and my community. And so I don't know if this is necessarily the generation that's like going to fix everything, because I don't I don't know if we're going to be able to see that, but I think that's an example of us planting the seeds, because I do think that our generation has such a strong capacity for care and empathy and defending each other and loving each other and looking out for the most vulnerable members of our population and saying, I'm here for you. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that that's something that they are going to continue to put into their communities. And children in those communities are going to see that, and they're going to grow up with those values, and they're going to pass that down even stronger to more members of their community. And my hope is that it's just this great ripple effect. And yeah, I don't know how I was going to end that sentence, but
Ripple effect works.
yeah.
So that's really a powerful statement to make as well, because I think that you're right. Every generation wants better for the next generation. I gotta believe that each parent wants their children to have a better world. I just know that, and I can't answer that question like you said from everybody who's in my generation, but the things that we put forth may have been more individualized, self moving forward things not necessarily volunteering outside of ourselves to see what we can do to improve the lives of others. And I'm not saying that we didn't do that people don't do that, but it just seems as though there's much more focus on community-related moving forward from your generation than I have seen over the years. And so I think that was the basis of my question.
That's good. I would hope so. I would hope that we're moving forward, and that we're, you know, that as each generation kind of comes into its own, that we're able to take the best parts and move that
Grow
forward.
from the right. That's what know your history so you don't mess up your future, right? You
Exactly.
grow from that experience. So we're coming up on the last couple minutes of the webinar or the podcast right now, and so I want to ask, what words of wisdom do you have, and how do you want to engage future students to come and be a part of Volunteer UCF?
I just want to say to anyone who just enters college, I want to stress, I guess, how important involvement is. I know a lot of students from UCF probably aren't from the Orlando area. I'm personally not from the Orlando area, and I think it's important just to get involved, just to learn more about your community. You're going to be here for, the next 4 or so years. And of course, whenever you're in an area that long, you want to have some sense of it being home, in a way. I know it's not always going to be just like where you're from, but you do want to know a lot about your community. So that's why I think it's really important just to get involved, even if that might not be specifically service, find some way to get involved in your community. As for Volunteer UCF, we love you. We want you to come with us. We want you to volunteer. I just really advocate for VUCF because I've told people this before, but it was one of the only reasons I chose to stay at UCF in freshman year, because at such a large university, it's kind of hard to find a place where you kind of fit. And just the numerous events that VUCF hosts, it just gives you, an opportunity to find something that you're really interested in. So we have so many different social topics, and on top of those, we have, larger scale events that unfortunately I've never been to in person, but just the smaller volunteer events, you can really find, what's your thing, what's something that you're really into. And once you do that, they have the opportunity for you to move up into these leadership positions, which gives you the chance to, meet other people on the board that, you'll be lucky enough to call like your family and just really close friends. And even me, like just being here virtually this year, I still love every single person on the board, and I would not have traded this opportunity for anything. So I just really want to encourage people, get involved and volunteer with Volunteer UCF.
Excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo so much of what Morgan said. I guess I don't know how to make recommendations for other people, but I know I can speak for myself in terms of like I guess also struggled with finding the place where I fit. But being involved with Volunteer UCF in the alternative break program kind of guided me along the way without me really knowing it, to ultimately ending up being in this leadership position and getting so much out of every step along the way, from being just someone who showed up to like an informational session once 3 years ago now, to volunteering, getting to know other volunteers, getting to know the people that run the volunteer events, and until getting to know the professional staff that puts on those volunteer events. Just every stage has been really impactful for me, and I believe it could do the same for other people as well, regardless of where they begin or end on that spectrum, I suppose. So it has done a lot for me, and I believe it would do a lot for other students as well.
What's really cool about what you're saying is that it taught you things that you didn't even know it was going to provide to you. And that growth and that development is just another thing that you could put as a feather in your cap as you move forward. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think my biggest tip to any student listening is to put yourself out there, and to challenge yourself, to get out of your bubble, to learn more, and when you think you've learned more, keep learning, and keep putting yourself out there. I think this specifically is such a large university that I can echo the sentiment of also feeling a little lost when I first came here. And I found a little home for myself within VUCF and ABP. I found community, and those are all things that I really needed and are probably part of the reason why I'm going to look back on UCF whenever I graduate in fondness. So I want to encourage students to put themselves out there. There are things and experiences that you might have that might seem scary at first. I know that I personally have still never been on an ABP trip just because I had been so busy, and now I'm looking back on this past year and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna go on an ABP trip before I graduate. I am going to do it because it is a scary experience, scary quote unquote, and it's going to push me out of my bubble, and I'm going to learn so much. And I've just seen how other students have been able to grow when they push themselves in that way, and how fruitful the rewards are. That I want to encourage any student listening to this to just try it out. Try it out once, try it out twice to make sure, and just keep trying.
Excellent.
Also to join VUCF and ABP.
Excellent. So just really quickly, are there just students that are involved? Can students, faculty, staff, administrators be involved as well? Or
Faculty, staff, they can absolutely volunteer with us. We would love that. Our programs are student run. They are for students, by students. So, we're all currently in our undergraduate. We have GAs that offer an amazing support system. We have a faculty and staff that advise us and they mentor us when we don't know what to do. They are the adultier adults. They are who we turn to. Our directors are all students. They have a life outside of VUCF and ABP, and they commit themselves to educating themselves in trainings, to running these trips, to organizing them, to running these service events. And so it's very much, I think, VUCF and ABP are very much both labors of love. I would like to call them, and everyone is welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you three for being a part of today's podcast and sharing what volunteerism is all about. It was very intriguing to hear your efforts, to hear and see your energy when it comes to the work that you're doing. It's something special about a person who's willing to go outside of themselves and not just think about themselves and what their needs and wants are, but the needs and wants of others who may be less fortunate. And so thank you. I'm excited to see what you all do moving forward. But I appreciate you being a part of the podcast today. And we look forward to seeing you all in the future. Okay. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.